Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Great Awakening Generator. I'm your host, Rose McNair, and today I have returning to the Great Awakening Generator, Kirsty Denny. Welcome, Kirsty.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Rose. It's been great to be back.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come back and so quickly as well. So I'll just say for the benefit of the audience, if you see smoke going past me here, that's because I've lit an incense stick. So it's on the side of me. Okay. So nothing's happening that shouldn't be happening. All right. So why have I asked Kirsty Denny back? I'll tell you why. If you didn't watch her video that we put out a few weeks ago on neuro-linguistic kinesiology, please do catch it because we had a lovely chat about what that is. And that is the work that Kirsty is offering the collective at the moment. But I asked her back because some of the things she said about things like the alphabet soup and what we were talking about was children who have come into the world and have got a label like ADD and ADHD. And I felt from the things that Kirsty was talking about that we shared this in common, that we have a heart for these children. And we know that they are children that should not just be medicated and shut down, but children that we should see the goodness of them or the bigger picture around them. And I felt that Kirsty was a very good person to come along and maybe have a chat with me about it. And we are hoping to do a few more episodes of it as a series so that we talk about this here out in the open, and also that we can share some tips and do a shakedown on it, because it's not all crazy. So and it's not all taboo or like you should be scared to talk about it, is what I'm finding. And I'm one of those people that as soon as somebody says ADD or whatever, I'm like, okay, how do I handle that? So I said a lot, Kirsty. So thank you for being back here, really, I have to say. And so tell us your point of view on this. And because we started that a little bit in that conversation, and I would like you to tell me about this point of view about ADD and ADHD and autism and that alphabet soup.
Mm. Yeah, and so I suppose to start off with, all of those different labels, they could be combined, for example, under I guess the kind of the trendy way to label it at the moment is neurodivergence.
Okay.
So neurodivergent people, and that all that means is, people who are slightly different from the norm, whatever the norm actually is. And so, what is that? What does it actually mean? And I think a lot of what it is it's just children who are extremely sensitive in one way or another. And most often probably a whole range of ways that they're actually really sensitive. And that expresses itself in a whole different manner of behaviors, traits, all those types of things.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these children, from what I understand, is that they don't have all of their so they don't all have the same responses to one thing. Everyone has a different response, and they also manifest this in various ways. Some might or they are able to manage it in various ways, where a child might be able to cope with whatever's going. I say cope, and that's my ignorant terminology. You can tell me if I'm wrong, okay? Or that's a bit, I could use a better terminology. So they cope with it. The coping mechanism, one might be about diet, and one might be about how the environment they're in, whether it's highly stressful or not. Is that my understanding on the right track there?
Yeah, because I would say if someone says to me, like, what is it? What is, say, we'll use autism as an example. What is autism? And to me, of course, there's a definition, and if you go to a psychiatrist, he has tick boxes of whether you're autistic or not based on the tick boxes. But even from that point of view, it's a very wide range of what it could be. and it's not just one thing. I mean, we just, as humans, we like categories and labels, so that's what we do. But it's a whole bunch of things, is what it is. And so if someone's displaying autistic behaviors, whatever that looks like, it could be, you know, obsessions, it could be having trouble socializing, it could be stims, it could be any number of things. The reality is that the reason for that behavior could be different for each individual child or adult as well. And so as an overarching kind of a thing, I see these humans, and we're talking about children specifically, kind of like canaries in the coal mine.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're here and they're showing us something about our world and its various different aspects. So, for example, a lot of these children will be chemically sensitive. So they're going to react poorly to things like pesticides in the food, pharmaceuticals, all these types of kind of physical toxicities, which will show itself in a lot of ways. And we all know by now about the gut-brain connection.
Yes.
And so often these children will have gut issues, and it affects the microbiome and it can cause inflammation. But in addition to these kind of things that are in the diet or in the environment, we've got to add in now all of the electromagnetic frequencies that we've added. So you've got your Wi-Fi, you've got your Bluetooth, you've got your smart this and your smart that. They can be very sensitive to that, which will manifest in a bunch of different ways. And also sensitive quite often to sort of natural environmental fluctuations, you know, so, you know, you've heard people talk about when the Schumann resonance, it changes.
That's right.
And
yes.
sometimes it spikes up and down.
Yes.
So often these children will be really sensitive to things like that and things like solar flares. And then really, really importantly, I think they're also going to be often really sensitive to emotional energy. So they'll pick up, if you're the parent, they'll pick up on your energy. And they're also probably going to pick up on generational trauma, so stuff that's coming through your family line.
Okay.
And also whatever's in the collective consciousness.
Wow.
So, you know, all these different sensitivities. So no wonder it's going to look different.
Yeah.
In each individual child.
Yeah.
And the things that help them will be different depending on actually what are the triggers.
Wow. So it's not one size fits all, and you can't paint everybody with the same brush really at the end of the day. And
no.
So what before we carry on, I want to ask this question. What are how do the sensitivities manifest?
Yeah, so you can start with the more biological ones, I suppose. So often, as I said, often there's troubles with digestion, absorption of nutrients.
Okay.
You know, metals and toxicities that have built up in the body. So it can cause digestive complaints, but also affect the brain.
Yeah, yeah.
And it can affect the brain in a large number of ways.
Explain something to me. Sorry, carry on if there was something more you wanted to say.
No, go on.
So do you know how you said earlier, you said something about, and we all know that what's happening with the gut affects what's happening with the brain, right? Explain that in like ordinary terms. What does it mean? If something's happening in the gut, what's going on with the brain?
Well, basically, the gut's like another brain. So you know, the nervous system is very complex, and in the past we tend to think it was all in here, but it's actually all throughout
all
you.
Over. That's right.
Yeah. All of those little microorganisms affect the way we think, the way we feel.
Yeah, so it's not just the brain that thinks, because the body holds the cellular memory of the body is quite intense, and it's really showing itself at the moment, right? We have no choice but to realize that hey, this is the body cellular memory of the body is bringing out things into our world. it has a memory and it's manifesting in various ways. So
Yeah,
I know we talk about
thing.
I know we're talking about the gut and we're saying, okay, that's the physical thing. Then there's also the emotional stuff that they're going through, right? Because you're getting all of this Schumann resonance, the solar flares, all of that stuff. And like you say, it's also what the parents are going through and or what emotions the parents are feeling that they pick it up because they're hypersensitive. So they can feel and see things beyond what maybe you can as well. Right. So
yeah.
and I get and I is it that I get that they pick up on these things, but they because of maybe it's about us and our ignorance, navigating and expressing it is how they can do it, but their ways of navigating and expressing might not necessarily be how we expect them to, how we expect children to behave. Is that my understanding of that making sense?
Yeah, so it can be really unexpected. So, you know, a child may be feeling a lot of, I suppose, conflict in the collective consciousness, for example. And then it may be expressed as you have this really rageful child.
Okay.
Because they're feeling
all
of this collective energy and trying to process it in their little body and with their limited rational understanding. And it's just this very visceral thing. And so you can have these very strong emotional outbursts of any kind coming through.
Wow.
And it's, I suppose, as a parent, one of the most important and hardest things to do is to not take it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just, you know, it's just an energy coming through the child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which isn't to say that you don't try and help them, and it isn't to say that you don't reflect and say, is it something to do with what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Because it might be, but usually it will be at the subconscious level. So you're not actually to blame anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Challenging when, sorry, go on.
So it's being present with it, and it's teasing things apart because it could be they're picking up on a really strong environmental energy in terms of emotions and things like that. Sometimes the number one priority is that actually something really toxic has crossed the blood-brain barrier, and so their brain is physically really inflamed.
Wow.
So this is the tricky thing about it. It's like this complex puzzle.
Yeah.
And you have to look at your individual child and what's going to help them.
Wow.
And it's usually a journey. Like, you know, sometimes you'll have a child and they'll have a lot of emotional outbursts. Maybe they'll have some physical complaints, and you put them on a gluten-free diet, and it's like magic. And then and everything shifts, and it's amazing. But more often, it's going to be a longer journey, and you'll try various different things. And so you have to be in it for the long haul, and so you have to take it kind of step by step. And just and be present with it and have compassion for them and have compassion for yourself, because usually it's not a quick fix, you know.
No, and it's a journey of a lifetime, isn't it? It's the journey that you're going to have as a life for a lifetime, and hopefully it won't be too long, and that all the things that we don't know will become more and more aware of it, and people will start having a different approach on how. And I think it started where the old systems are not actually working for us anymore, and the old systems do not fit for children who have come with this hypersensitivity and to the planet. And so we're seeing that because you know, there's a few people I know that have got children who have been alphabetized, and they have had to change their life. From what I know, they've had to change their life. They've had to rethink how they navigate life. And so yeah, you know, it's not like you can give a child back, is it? So,
oh,
I don't want this one.
Yeah.
You know, so it's about commitment and dedication. And interestingly enough, you know, because I have someone really close to me that that is in the situation, and I just saw them change their whole life when it happened, when they realized it, when the pediatrician had said, this is the situation. They changed their whole life, and their work situation, everything. Do you think parents feel sometimes that it's their fault when a child is in that situation?
Yes, yes is the short answer. There can be a lot of guilt, there can be a lot of grief, which is painful. And sometimes it's a really important part of the process. Because, it's possible there are things that you've done that have contributed, but feeling guilty is not helpful.
No,
Sometimes that's
no.
just, you have to go through that process of feeling it all, having it come to the surface. And that will be part of your own healing. I know that's true for me. I definitely did a lot of oh, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I didn't resolve my emotional trauma enough for myself before I had kids, and my kids are suffering because of it. And, people also experience this grief because of maybe substances in their bodies while they were pregnant, or things that have been injected into their children. And all of these things, of course, no one does them to try and hurt their child.
No.
And if you had a less sensitive child, you probably wouldn't notice any effects of it either. But they've come to you for a reason, and when you're on this journey. So they're kind of canaries in the coal mine, and they're also catalysts of change.
Okay. Now, what I want to say is, before we go to, I'll say this, and then I'm going to ask you to explain that canaries in the coal mine idiom and analogy for us. All right. I feel that when we start to move through the journey of this, we have to come to realize, and I say this generically because this is for you, this is for anybody else who's watching and listening, that these children, we could have done, there is nothing we could have done differently for these children to come onto the planet. And I know we look for medical reasons and all of that, and I'm sure that we could rationalize it if we thought about the medical reasons. But you just said something. You said something about change just now. These children have come to make a change, right? And you're going to explain the canary in the coal mine just now. But they could not come. They've come through their parents, because we believe that children choose the parents they're going to be going to be born to. They have come to make a change. They have got higher purpose, and nothing we could have done could change the fact that we would be the transportation for these children. Whichever one of us has, every parent that has this child, you have been the transportation to bring the soul onto the planet. And therefore, this soul needed to come and express itself because it is part of Earth's transformation process. It is part of this planet's process, and they are the way showers for it. That's my thought on it. And I always encourage parents who have got children who have been alphabetized according to all these different things, to find out more about their energy space, about things beyond the mainstream medical side of things. We do not discount that clinical and medical information is necessary, because that's where it comes into. Anytime a child is being alphabetized, they get put into that category, and then medicine and all of that is prescribed, and you decide whether you want to go down that route or not. But there is also the other side of it. So it's kind of look at it in a holistic way. This is what I would be saying. And this is my complete ignorance of it, but this is what I know of it. And I know from the esoteric community, these are amazing children that have come here. So please explain to us, what does the canary in the coal mine mean?
So the canary was taken into the coal mine because it would pick up on toxicity. Gas, I think, was the main thing.
Yes.
And it would die. We don't want our children to die, but it was showing toxicity at a much lower level than would affect the miners.
Okay.
And so that's what I mean by these children are extremely sensitive.
Great.
and so they pick up on all kinds of toxicity and dissonance,
Okay.
and feel it in their body, their physical and energetic body.
Yes.
Mm. And then we're here to learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you figured out now with all the gray in my hair that I'm either a baby boomer or I am a X generation. And this is where I come to my next question. So as an X generation person, when I was growing up, um that means everybody that X generation people are everybody that will say maybe from about 48 years old and upwards, right? That's the age category we're in.
Yeah.
So we never heard of such things. We never, if you didn't fit into school, then you were just a dunce. You just didn't know what, you were just bad. You just didn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You just
you
fail.
you just fail. That's it. Fail out of here, gone. And our parents did not. I remember my mother just really, because I have always had an upside down way of thinking. If the teacher's teaching it in one way and everybody's getting it, I'll be looking at it and I'll be thinking about it from another angle. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was what they meant. And I used to be like, I hated primary school. And so we didn't have this. And so I figured out as we've gotten older that some of us were probably already going through these kinds of things. And because of ignorance of our parents, we had to grin and bear it and just like, either drop out or carry on until it actually got better, hope for the best kind of thing, right? So
yeah,
thank the universe. I say thanks the universe that things have changed now. I don't think we could have carried on like that, so and thank the universe for parents who are actually acknowledging that their children are not, yes, the school system, for example, one of the systems, recognizes that they're different from the norm. But you guys are brave to take the journey to say that is what the school system says, but I want to see you for who you are. And I want to respond to help you live your life and fulfill your purpose here. Because there wasn't a handbook when I was growing up in the 70s, for this. And I don't know that there must be lots of, now there might be books written about it, doctors are more aware of it, etc. So I want to say, I'm saying, when you choose this and you know this and you are willing to do all that you need to do for your children, you're putting so much the needs of this being first, this highly evolved being, because that's what they are, I believe, right?
Yes.
So so I just feel like, honor to all of the parents that are taking the journey, recognizing it and coming to that point. So now I wanted us to give some specific definitions, explain it clearly. And the reason I do this, because a lot of the people that will listen and watch this may not be clued up about what that is. What does it mean? When you say autism, what is an autistic child? And this time I'm looking for mainstream explanations, if you don't mind, if you can give.
So I guess ADHD is characterized by mainly problems with focus.
Yes.
And it can look like hyperactivity, but it can also just be distractibility. So it could be a child who's just daydreaming and doesn't focus, as opposed to a child who's all bouncing off the walls and not focusing.
Okay.
And I can't remember the word off the top of my head, but the Maori word for ADHD means attention in many places. So it's like diffuse attention. And often these children are very, spiritual.
So you say you
know.
like that? You say you like that? The Maori expression of it?
It's not explaining it as a disorder. It's just saying what it is. It's attention in many places at once. It's like this ability to be taking in the big picture, really.
Isn't it amazing how the native peoples can bring something down like that into the
and because it's a new word, it's a newly invented word, right? Because obviously they didn't have that word in the past. And
that's right.
The word for autism is beautiful in Māori as well. takiwatanga, which is
Oh,
means in another time and space. It's like this multi-dimensional being, basically.
ah.
Yeah.
I so love it. I so
Yes,
love it.
it's
Oh,
beautiful.
oh,
But
it's
you know,
very beautiful.
the medicalization of autism, it's quite broad in how it presents, but
Mm,
some of the key facets can be trouble with communication, but it's not necessarily trouble, it's just that it's atypical communication.
yeah,
So it's all
yeah,
about keying into that individual and how they communicate. Um, yeah,
yeah,
so the communication and, various kind of fixations or
yeah,
atypical ways of moving their body and things like that.
yeah,
Um, but one of the interesting things about there's this neurodiversity movement, which focuses on that this is just, diversity in the brain, like we've got biodiversity in nature. And it has both pros and cons because yes, it's really great. As you were saying in the past, we had people with brains like this, and they grew up and they were just the naughty child, they were the lazy child, they were the weirdo. Um, and so
yes,
sometimes we think it's not so great to label children as autistic or ADHD, but it all depends on how you use the label because sometimes that's much preferable to being called the naughty child, right?
yes,
Um,
yes,
and it's all
yes,
about how you use the label and also whether or not you fixate on that label and allow it to limit you, because that's
yeah,
the danger with any label of any type,
yes,
is that you
yeah.
put yourself in a box.
That's right.
Um,
Hmm.
mm.
And are
And
you
the other,
defined by that? Is that what
yeah,
defines your everything? Because,
yes,
these
yeah,
children are not meant to be different in terms of we teach them manners, we teach them table manners, we teach them all those things. You can't, sometimes these things
mm,
can be reasons for them to be, it can go too far. You can go the other way, right? So yeah.
yeah. So you don't need to peg them into a normal box. And at the same time, you can also get too attached to this label, like, oh, I'm autistic, that's my identity. And when people get really attached to those labels as a positive identity, sometimes that's limiting because it will stop them from finding ways to actually thrive more
Yeah.
as a person or help
Yeah.
their child thrive more. Like, a lot of people will say, that's just the way I am. So
Mm.
diet won't change it. But how I see it is, if you change the diet, if you do energy work and it benefits the person, then you're not taking away their autism. They're still, the aspects of that are positive are still there. They're still quirky, they're still sensitive, um, they're still a change maker, but they're a more thriving version of themselves as that
Yeah. Yeah.
without
Absolutely.
maybe crippling anxiety
Yeah.
or digestive trouble or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a Earth is meant, well, some people say we're supposed to have a wonderful time here. And we know this is true. We're supposed to have a wonderful time here. Because when the wonderful times happen, they are amazing. And Earth is a beautiful planet to be on anyway. However, um, I think it's finding the place for yourself because when as soon as something looks or out of the norm, out of what's normal, then we want
Mm,
to label it, we want to identify and understand it. We want to say this is not how it should be because we are so normified, so to speak of, it's got to be this way. If it's not this
mm,
way, there's something wrong with it. And I believe that children of this caliber, of this, who have this kind of sensitivities, have come here to shake us out of that reverie of it's got to be one way or a certain or this way, and if it's not like that then it's wrong. We really have to, they've come to to remove polarities that have existed here for how long now? We don't even know
mm.
how long because it's been that long. It would be nice if we didn't have all the amnesia as parents.
They're here to shake it up. And
I
what's
know.
interesting was with my firstborn, before actually, even just before I got pregnant with him, I had this realization that I wouldn't be sending my children to school. I just
Wow.
knew. And I was like, wow, that's a game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
There goes my career kind of thing.
That's
But
right.
I just knew it. And I was like, well, I'll just have to make that work.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right.
So this brings us to why we're talking to you about it. Are you able to tell us a little bit about that? Not in depth, because we're going to talk about you in depth in the weeks to come. Are you able to tell us something about it?
Yeah, so I suppose just as an introduction, yeah, I had it's so funny. A
Let
lot
me
of
say
it's like,
something, right? Let me say
yeah,
something before you say this, because
yeah,
I will do this part. All right. Now, I will do this part and you take whatever else from that.
mhm,
And guys that you're watching, you know, we're learning all the time. So I asked Kirsty to do this series with me because she has firsthand experience with this. And I believe that it is this expert that can talk about this topic, this person that is going through something like this, or is not going through, that's living life and having to, and this is their life. All right. Because if we're not going through it, we are living our lives with it. That's it. So this is why I've asked Kirsty to talk about this, because I know that she has a lot of she will have a lot of insight about it, and also she will be able to give us some tips, because this is what we want to reach out. We also want to give these children a platform here, as in we are talking about them and we're acknowledging that they're here to do these things that's different from anybody else. And those of us that were like that came prior to now, we were suppressed, but these amazing children get to express,
mm,
right? They get to
they
express
do.
themselves. So
Yeah.
now you take off from there and tell us more about you. Not
Mm,
the whole in depth, but just a thing of saying, you know, just a brief thing.
yeah, because we can talk about it more another time, but just
Yes.
by way of introduction, like a lot of us, we have ideas about how motherhood will be. And, you know, like looking back, I tried so hard to control that process. I'm quite a relaxed person. I'm not super organized, but I really wanted things to be perfect for my children, which is interesting. And so, you know, I ate all organic food and lots of probiotics, and I did yoga and meditated all the way through my first pregnancy. And I did hypnobirthing. And, you know, like the hypnobirthing teacher tells you, if you do hypnobirthing, it's likely your baby's going to be super relaxed and, you know, they're going to sleep well. And it's, and it was like this massive wake up call for me, because my child was just born, you know, screaming, as most children are, right? Because they take their first breath and it's this massive shock.
Yes.
But then it just kept on going. You know,
Okay.
he just cried, cried,
Oh,
and cried, and his little body was so tense, and he had all of this reflux, and he was in so much pain.
oh,
Um, and it was just, see, like I'm emotional even now. It was just
oh, I can feel that. Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
All, you know, all I wanted was to make him feel better. And it was like
Yeah.
the best way I can describe it, it was like having my heart like ripped out of my chest and stamped on over and over and
Mm, yeah.
over. And so then what you do when you're a parent like this is you go, maybe you might go to the doctor, you get gaslit. Oh, it's just a bit of gas, it's normal, it doesn't hurt that much, he'll grow out of it. But you know that there's something wrong, and you start to research and you start to find things out, and you start to try different things for your child. Um, and it was just so intense. Like he just brought so much intensity into the world, because, you know, his pain was intense, but his joy, like, incredible as well. Like this baby was so charismatic,
Yeah.
and he had so much presence.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
just
wow.
everything was super intense, and it was like he just woke me up. I thought I'd done a lot of work, you know, I'd been doing mindfulness and da da da, and he just came and was like, guess what? There's a whole level under there that you haven't even looked at, and that's been dredged to the surface. And it's
Yeah.
um, like having the carpet ripped out from under your feet. And just, yeah, began this incredible journey of discovery. And I knew he was different, like right away from like
Yes.
average babies, but I
Yeah.
also knew that he wasn't broken. Um,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
he definitely did have some things that were causing him a lot of discomfort. So
Right.
it's the journey of processing that and figuring out
Yeah.
what's going on.
Mm, mm.
Mm,
Wow. Wow. So
yeah.
what a moment we've just had. You know, I listened to that and I think that must have been quite intense for you and for your partner, husband. I don't know what you call him.
Yeah, my husband. Yeah.
Husband. So yes, your husband. So it's always important for both parents to be supportive in that situation, right? It's like it's to understand, because this is what will get you through. Both being open to learning and taking the journey. But wow. So how's it? I know that this was when he was a baby. How's it gone? How's it progressed now? Because you have more than one child, and
Yes.
it didn't disrupt. It didn't take away the desire to have another child, obviously.
No, actually, some people said to me, "I didn't think you'd have another one."
Oh wow. Okay.
Not as an insult to my child, just because they knew, like, I had terrible postnatal depression because
Right.
during this intensity and the
Yeah.
sleep
Yeah.
deprivation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I was just exhausted, but we always knew we wanted at least one more child. And so there's a 2.5 year gap, and our second son
Oh,
was
awesome.
was was born at home, and it was like, the perfect birth. It was like this incredible spiritual experience. And then he is also neurodivergent, but he's different from his brother. And they're both incredible.
So you did all the right things that you knew to do before baby came along, or before
It was like all the right things, and you think,
yes.
and
Yeah.
still, as you say, still these children came through. We were chosen for it. We chose each other.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not about that, is it? It's about something high. It's about a different purpose. Dare say
mhm,
a higher purpose, and you are the conduit or the transportation for the soul to come and be here.
mm,
And I feel like I need to say this: always ask for the help you need from the esoteric, because sometimes when we're going through things, we can go through things and we can forget we have all these people around us, or esoteric beings
mm,
around us, to help us, because surely these beings have come with a lot more people than we had here already, looking after them
mm,
and guiding them, because
yes.
that will make the journey easier. You know,
Yes, because sometimes, when you can feel like a victim, being like a bit forsaken almost.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
did
oh,
everything right, and
yeah.
and this is still happening. So maybe the things I believe to be true aren't true. And there's a lot of this, like, almost existential crisis that can happen
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
mm-hmm,
It's like shaking your faith in life or the things you believe in. Because like, I believed this, I did that, and now it didn't turn out the way I thought it could turn out. And so now it's like, oh, yeah. I mean, if I think about it, like, my you when you're asking God for something and you're praying about something and it doesn't go that way, because we kind of, I don't know, when my life, I reflect on my life as a Christian, and we were taught, like, just ask God, because God will give you the things you want. But we realize after a while, you don't get everything you want the way you want it. Faith
no,
preachers will faith preachers will
no.
tell you, you just be detailed with God and you do this diligently, and I can guarantee you you'll get your answer. But actually, you can do all the practical stuff. You don't have the energy in it. And if you there's something called soul contract, and something, and the learning we have to go through to get to that thing anyway. Yeah, I've just found that concept has gone out the window for me for the last 15 years or so. So, it worked for the time it was meant to work for. Um, so,
Yes.
I feel like we have been talking, and one thing that we will basically go now to to conclude this episode of the series.
Mhm.
What would you leave us with? Because you're coming back to talk about more stuff with regards to this topic. What one thought would you leave all of us with today?
Um, I would say, if you're on this journey as a parent, a lot of the time the most important first step it's a kind of radical acceptance. So accepting your child just as they are right now, and releasing those expectations about how you thought it would be. You can allow yourself to grieve as part of that process, but it's that acceptance of how they are and of how you have been, and just letting it be how it is. And then from that place, then usually you're more able to work towards that more thriving version. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, first you have to accept how it actually is right now. And it might feel like it kind of sucks. But your love for your child, that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's not broken.
No. No.
Never.
Yeah. Wow, that's good advice. And I guess even if it feels like it sucks and all of that, it's okay to be feeling like that, because being true to yourself and how it feels is probably the platform that you can take off on to carry on your journey and figure out what the things are that will work for you.
Yeah, sort of be honest about where you are right now and just love your child, love yourself. And then from that place,
yeah,
you can deepen the understanding, and then you can move forward.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Kirsty, thank you so much for today, for the first one. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. And everybody, thank you for joining us. And we look forward to you joining us again. Yeah, any final words before we close our episode today, Kirsty? Okay.
No, just
catch you next time.
Be present, and hopefully see you again. I have so much more to say. And I'm sure you do too, Rose.
I do, but I know you have.
Explore.
I know you have a lot to say, and I would love for you to say it. I believe there's something big coming from this, and it is your voice that will still the hearts and minds of people that are going through a lot of trauma around this. This is what I believe. So everyone, we'll catch you next time. And I was thinking, what shall I say to you? As I say sometimes, keep reaching for the stars. Keep reaching for the stars, because you have a few. If you have children that have been labeled from the alphabet soup, you have a few stars in your home. Just remember that. They're right there with you. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.